officials are warning Americans near the Kabul airport to leave immediately due to an undisclosed security threat. Now, this happening as more than 19,000 people have been evacuated from Afghanistan in the past 24 hours alone. The Biden administration has not disclosed how many are Americans, but the Secretary of State said today that roughly 1,500 were left in the country. So the questions remaining tonight: how is the administration keeping track of the remaining U.S. citizens there? And how are we getting them out? And did the Biden administration pay ransom for their safe passage, or the promise of their safe passage? Additionally, new information breaking that the evacuation includes unaccompanied minors whose families have been left behind. Of course, that poses its own set of problems for an America already struggling with tens of thousands of unaccompanied minors who've crossed our southern border. We're going to get to more on all of this with Congressman Jim Jordan and former acting DHS Secretary Chad Wolf. Also coming up, the porn industry chalks up another win. Plus, Raymond Arroyo exposes a human tragedy unfolding right here in California. But first, as California goes, that's the focus of tonight's angle. If you want to know where America is headed if we don't turn the tide against Biden's socialist regime, look no further than right here in California. Now, I brought the show here because Americans need to understand where we're headed with the Democrats in charge. For better or worse, the Golden State has always led the way, culturally, politically, and yes, morally. The American dream, in many ways, it began right here in California. Now, it wasn't just the land of sunshine, surfing USA, and beautiful people. But from the gold rush to the tech boom, it was a place that epitomized America's potential and limitless opportunities. But after a decade of Democrats dominating every branch of government here, it's all unraveling. Today's California consists of a tiny sliver of super wealthy people, a growing underclass, and a rapidly shrinking middle class that's fed up and running for the exits. So for all their claims of being progressive, California, though, is among the most regressive states in the country. Over the past decade, 80% of the state's jobs have paid under median wage, half of which are paid less than $40,000, and most are in poorly paid personal services or hospitality jobs. Even at some of the state's most prestigious companies like Google, many lower and even mid-level workers live in mobile home parks. Others sleep in their cars. And thousands upon thousands of people now live on the streets. We're going to take you inside the homelessness crisis swamping this city later on in the show. Now, it's so bad that even Democrat voters may finally be waking up.
By two homeless people within the matter of 15 minutes.
Is this Governor Newsom's fault?
I mean, technically, how can I even answer that? He's the leader. Everything starts from the top, and it goes down.
Well, Democrats should be very worried because their defund the police crusade has led to skyrocketing crime. Those women are feeling it. In L.A., murders are up nearly 24%. Shootings are up almost 38%. Now, in San Francisco, where we were just earlier this week, shootings are up 105% during the first half of this year alone. So police, they're understaffed and outgunned. And at the same time, we've left left-wing DAs to run amok. People like Chesa Boudin in San Francisco and George Gascon here in L.A. Total travesties. They're more focused on letting the criminals walk free than seeing them locked up and off the streets.
The people we're arresting are on probation. They're on the electronic ankle monitoring by the probation department, and it still doesn't deter them from going out and committing these crimes because they know the district attorney won't do anything.
So it's a revolving door of criminality. In,
absolutely.
Out, 24, 48 hours.
Oftentimes, these people, if they're arrested, will be back out of jail before the police officers are done writing their police report.
Now, it's not just the crime and the homelessness, though. Democrats' policies from lockdowns to high taxes punish small business owners and entrepreneurs as well. And when Governor Gavin Newsom is asked to explain why so many people are leaving for the red states, he just gets dismissive and defensive.
We had better health outcomes in Florida and Texas, and better economic outcomes. I'm proud of the fact we actually have a housing policy and homeless policy for the first time in decades. Everybody outside this state is about this state because of our success.
Go back to Plump Jack Winery, my friend. Oh, by the way, and they also literally can't keep the lights on or water running here. Under Newsom, the state saw its first rolling blackout since 2001, thanks in part to insane left-wing climate policies. The state faces a potential supply shortfall of about 2.6 million households, forcing gruesome Newsom to allow industrial facilities to run on diesel generators. That's great for the environment. So much for going green. Things are so desperate here that Newsom's now paying people to cut down on energy use. I kid you not. But it's not billionaires like Oprah Winfrey up in Montecito or Mark Zuckerberg who get hit by the Democrats' growth-killing taxes or Greeniac measures. They don't care about that. They're so rich. It's the middle class that gets hit. California's energy and climate regs are so crippling to working families, especially minorities, they've actually been dubbed the Green Jim Crow. And Larry Elder, the leading Republican in the September 14th recall effort, aims to turn all of this around. What's your first thing you're going to do if you get elected?
To the extent that there are any statewide mandates for mask wearing and for vaccine for state workers, they're going to be repealed. I'm going to declare a public emergency on homelessness. I'm going to declare a public emergency on water.
More from the candidate from his old neighborhood in just a few moments. What we're revealing to you tonight is a cautionary tale. The media is shilling for Newsom and the teachers' unions and big tech bankrolling the war chest. That's happening, but none of that can change the fact, the truth, that California is dying a slow and painful death. But a political backlash is brewing. The people still have the power to turn the tide. Now is the time to throw the leftist bums out. And California can lead the nation once again by sending a powerful message to the political establishment. Push us too far, and we'll push you out. And that's the angle. In moments, my exclusive interview with California Republican gubernatorial candidate Larry Elder. But first, Newsom's not the only left-wing politician facing the ire of voters. LADA George Gascon, who I just mentioned, is under fire for his radical policies that have put the violent criminals above victims and their families. Just ask my next guest, Desiree Andrade, a leader in the Recall Gascon movement. Her son was brutally murdered back in 2018. He was repeatedly stabbed, beaten, and then he was thrown off a cliff. His body was found 2 days later. And now, thanks to Gascon's quote reforms, none of his killers will actually face life without parole. Desiree joins me now. Desiree, I know people say, I'm sorry for your loss. I don't know if it helps, but it's a desperately sad and infuriating story. And as a mother, my heart does break for you. I'm so sorry. But your story could perhaps make a difference here. Tell us what you're feeling given what you're seeing happen day in and day out at the hands of George Gascon.
I'm feeling, first of all, thank you, Laura, for having me. I'm feeling let down by the justice system. My son was brutally beaten and tortured to death back in May 2018, and the 5 killers involved in his murder are no longer, as you mentioned, are no longer facing life without parole or the death penalty. These gentlemen are now facing 25 years and only having to do 80% of that time, which is 20 years. That is not enough. My son has a sentence. His sentence was death. I will never see my son again. How is it even a thought that they will be out in time to create families of their own and do everything that my son was cheated from? So I feel let down by George Gascon. I feel it's personal now. I feel that him neglecting us victims is personal, and for him not to reach out to me is personal. I think he's a danger to LA County, point blank.
What was the reaction of your son's murderers when they found out that they'd be getting out in 20 years?
It was sickening, actually. My daughter and I sat in court as one of them gave a fist bump to his attorney, and his attorney looked at him like, good job, and was smiling from ear to ear. And it was done all in front of me, which was a slap in the face. It just goes to show you where we're at. Criminals are now considered victims. What are we doing here? It's the other way around. I feel that they are getting more justice than we, the victims, are, and it's not right at all.
I want to show some good news here, Desiree, which is the current polling about this George Soros-supported DA, Mr. Gascon. 25% approval rating, a 40.8% disapproval rating, and 61% say they'll vote for an unnamed alternative candidate. Your message to Democrat women in this state who just can't feel like they can vote against a Democrat that's in office like George Gascon, because you need about, you need 580,000 signatures by October 27th to get this recall in order. So what's your message to them tonight?
I'm a Democrat. We need to all wake up. This is not a political stance. This is not a political effort. This is about a fight for what's right and what's wrong. We need to wake up. We need to get together as a community, as Angelenos, and get this man out of office. I'm telling you all, you do not want to be in my place. You do not ever want to lose your son. You do not ever want to be a part of this right here. You do not want to be a part of this violence. You do not want to be about this destroyed criminal justice system. It's just gone wrong. So please, everybody wake up. These polls mean nothing without these signatures. We need signatures. Please go to Recall George Gascon, download the petition, sign. We need him out. This is now down to crunch time. And I just do not want him to stay in office. He is a danger. Like I said, I am scared. I am scared for our safety. Please, I am begging all of you to please take this very seriously.
Desiree, I don't recognize L.A. I first came here in 1984. I thought I had died and gone to heaven. It was the most incredible place. Watching your pain, the pain of so many parents, everything that's happening here, it's unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable. I will post the link to the website so we can get more signatures. We will be in touch with you, obviously, before the October deadline. But this cannot be for naught. Desiree, thank you for sharing this story. I know it is incredibly difficult for you, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me again. I'm incredibly blessed. Thank you.
Unbelievable. Voting is currently underway in the recall election against Governor Gavin Newsom. And on September 14th, another date you have to keep in mind if you want to save the state. We're going to find out if the Golden State turns red. Right now, 46 candidates are running to replace Newsom. Should the voters decide to recall him, there's one question. Do you want him recalled? That's question number one. Question number two is who do you want to replace him? But the standout, the guy leading, is Larry Elder. He's a radio talk show host. I spoke at length with him today as we toured the South Central neighborhood where he grew up. Here's what we learned. Larry Elder grew up in this neighborhood of South Central L.A. He graduated from Crenshaw High School right behind me. He ended up becoming an outspoken radio host, a columnist. You see him all the time on television. But now, he wants to be the man who replaces liberal California Governor Gavin Newsom. Larry, everyone says, look, the odds are against you. What's the magic sauce you have?
Well, I was born and raised here. I'm from the hood. I went to Crenshaw High School. I can talk about issues like choice in public school in a way that gives me more credibility than I think than the average Republican.
The crime in this state it's just devastating. As governor, what do you do there given Prop 47, which is already on the books? Anything under $950, you're not really seeing a lot of police activity on.
I'll tell you what I won't do. I won't release 20,000 prisoners early because of coronavirus. And based on stats, most of them are likely to reoffend. Gavin Newsom has. It's something like 70,000 people since he's been governor have been released early. Many of them have been violent offenders. I won't do that. I won't have this false narrative that the police are out to get black people. 81% of black people, according to a recent poll, say they want the police manpower to remain the same or to be increased. This is just common sense stuff. That's one of the reasons why a majority of Hispanics want this man recalled because of lack of choice in school and because of crime. The people that are disproportionately hurt by crime are the very black and brown people that liberals love to say that they care about.
Now, Larry, you have been the subject, not surprisingly, of a lot of attacks from the LA Times, local California pundits and so forth, and nationally, accusing you of everything from brandishing a gun to using the N-word. It goes on and on.
Goes on.
Your reaction to these specific charges?
Well, I've never brandished a gun, loaded or unloaded, at anybody in my life. Regarding the other allegations made, they're almost too silly to respond to. I've also been called the black face of white supremacy.
I saw that.
Yeah.
That's one of the top hits on Google, by the way. You put in Larry Elder saying, that's what you get, which means you're a threat to somebody.
Well, that's right. And I've also been accused of saying women are stupid. They're referring to an article that I wrote in 2000, 21 years ago, where I was quoting a study from the Annenberg School, which is a left-wing school. They asked men and women 25 questions about politics. Men knew more than women did 15 of them. They knew the same in 9 of them. Women knew only more than men in 1 of them. And the reason that the women knew less, according to a female professor who's still around, left-wing.
So you're quoting.
I'm quoting her. She said the reason women know less is because they get their dominant source of news from local news, and local news makes you dumber. End of quote. I didn't say it. She did.
Yeah.
And now I hate women.
This happens to those of us in the public eye a lot. You have a very thick skin, though. And I think this is part of the reason that you need almost someone who's been out there in the public eye a lot to be able to withstand what the incoming is. Where did you get that? Where did you get that thick skin?
I think from my mother and my father. My mother always told me nobody can make you feel inferior without your permission. My dad always felt Democrats want to give you something for nothing. When you try and get something for nothing, you almost always end up getting nothing for something, one of his favorite expressions. My father was thrown out of the house by his mom when he was 13 years old. At Athens, Georgia, Jim Crow South at the beginning of the Great Depression. Tough guy, and so was my mom. And I've been called an Uncle Tom for 30 years.
I worked for Justice Thomas, so I know this terrain very well.
Uncle Tom, bootlicking Uncle Tom, bug-eyed, foot-shuffling, bootlicking Uncle Tom, Oreo, coconut, the Antichrist, you name it, I've been called that. That's one of the reasons, by the way, Laura, I think I'm going to be successful when I get up to Sacramento. I'm not going up there to make friends. I'm not afraid of being disliked. In fact, I expect to be disliked.
After he showed me where he attended high school, Larry took me to his childhood home in South Central LA, and we talked about what impact he could have on the U.S. Senate if he were elected. And a lot of people are talking about potential Senate retirements on the Democrat side. If you're governor, you would have the replacement power?
That's right. The governor replaces the senator. Recently, Alex Padilla, the replacement for Kamala Harris.